I'm excited for what Kool-Aid McKinstry brings to this team. I don't know exactly what his role will be, but it's not going to be strictly a special teamer. I can tell you that. Whether or not he kind of takes over that outside role at corner, or Malachi Moore goes there and he takes over at the star position as sort of that hybrid nickel safety kind of player, I don't know. But I think that Jaquincy McKinstry was the number one player in the state for a reason. We all got to see him in some form or fashion throughout our coverage of high school football. So I think that's a guy that we can be extremely excited for. But James, I want to welcome you in to the show. James Ludeman, our fantastic producer, for I know you got at least one show in the upcoming future that you're not going to be with us. We're going to bring back Tommy Paradise, but at least for the most part, on his own dime and his own time being here, greatly appreciate it of him. But James, who is the guy that you're excited to see in this freshman class coming to 2021 for the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Can it be any sport?
No,
or just football?
It's football.
Just football?
Yeah. I mean, we're all excited about J.D. Davison.
That's what I was going to say.
Like,
dude, the guy is unreal. No, I think you hit it with Kool-Aid. I'm telling you, I love the kid. I love what he's able to do defensively. I think he's very, very good. He has very good hands. And he's one of those guys that, you look at this defense who – it's kind of up and down. I know you and I have had so many conversations about a Pete Golding defense and how, that they've allowed a lot of points and things like that, and people are unhappy with the defense. But I'm going to tell you, this recruiting class as a whole, though, for Alabama's defense, and they still got a couple guys that are in the process of making their final decisions defensively for Alabama, I think is going to be great. But I will say, as far as a guy who you look at explosively and who can make the big play, it's got to be Kool-Aid for me. I just love the idea of him being back there next season and really making an impact, even in his freshman year. I think he can come in and make an immediate impact right away.
I do too, and I would be shocked, honestly, if he doesn't. James, I'm also curious of Wesley's other prospect that he was curious to see. And again, join us in the chats, man. That's how we can interact and have radio in a brand new way. We appreciate Wesley for stepping in and being a star here for us on the show. Keanu Cote, though, comes in out of Florida as a edge prospect. He's 6'4", 215. He's a little lean. And with the success that we saw out of Will Anderson, who is a bulkier guy, and Chris Allen manning down the other spot, we've got Drew Sanders to feel good about. We've got a lot of guys on the edge. I used to be incredibly worried about this position, and no longer am I. But what do you think about a guy that's a little bit leaner but has some speed to him and coming in and assisting the defense as a third down pass rusher?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing for Alabama that's something that I'm with you. I think there's been some concern in the past, even to some degree last season, but maybe it's really been one of those improved spots. But getting a speedster on the edge, look what happened with the Super Bowl. I mean, you got the edge rusher in Shaquille Barrett, and he made a huge difference in the Super Bowl, and that's the kind of stuff that you can do in college as well.
Your edge rushers always matter, and I can't help but to think what kind of guys are going to come in and create their own money. You know what I'm saying? Like, not, obviously not, monetarily, but get onto the field themselves. So, hey, talking about a guy like Terrion Arnold, the safety position was considered probably the weakest on the defense, but you've still got a leader like Jordan Battle. You've got other guys back there, DeMarco Helms, and Wright that can get the job done. But does a guy like Terrion Arnold come in who's got all the measurables and everything in the world to make you think that, oh, this guy can be the real deal and win a spot off of one of these veteran guys? That's always the interesting thing. A lot of times we automatically assume, unless it's a quarterback, that they're just going to have to wait their turn. A guy like Kamar Wheaton, the backfield is just too much. He's going to have to wait his turn. Or even a guy like Keanu Cote, where we instantly think, well, Will Anderson and Chris Allen are already really good, and they're already bulked. why would you expect this guy who's only 215 pounds? You know what I'm saying? So it's always interesting to see how these guys get here, soak in the scheme, soak in the playbook, soak in the culture, and then are able to display it out on the field. Michael, who are the Alabama Crimson Tide freshmen that you are excited to see here in 2021?
Yeah, it's not so much one single player as it is a positional group. We got 4 stud wide receivers coming in next year. Jacory Brooks is, I believe, the highest rated of the 4, but there's also guys like Ajayi Hall, Christian Leary, and JoJo Earl. JoJo Earl and Leary a bit smaller, quicker guys, kind of like I've seen a couple of Waddle comparisons to them. But yeah, I mean, when I was a senior in high school deciding where I was going to go to college, I watched the national championship against Georgia. I watched a positional group of freshman wide receivers go out and win the national championship. And that was actually kind of what convinced me to go to Alabama. I was between here and Tennessee. Yes, I know. Boo. But anyway, I mean, you take a group of 4 young elite, these guys coming in, I'm thinking they could be another class that comes up together and dominates together for the next 4 years.
First of all, we have to get your eyes checked because nobody wants to go to Tennessee and wear that putrid orange. Second of all, thankful that you're here. For what it's worth, I almost went to Auburn and LSU myself. You know, you've heard this. Don't give me that look. No, the Vols are not back. They will not be back for another decade. You heard it here on Off the Edge. It's not that hot of a take, but it is the truth. They're done for a minute. But as far as Michael's consideration to these 4 wide receivers, 4 of the top 10 wide receivers in the 2021 recruiting class. That is nuts. That's not fair. Like that's the sort of stuff that people like me that are group of 5 sympathizers and want playoff expansion and whatnot. That's the kind of stuff that those kind of people that aren't Alabama fans kind of cry about. Like, you cannot possibly do that. It's just not fair. And it's not even the first time Alabama's done it. Maybe the ranking system of it, because Devontae Smith wasn't as highly ranked out of that either, and Jalen Waddle wasn't a part of that class. But nonetheless, 4 wide receivers that you can count on that are all versatile in what they do, have similar traits. You talked about JoJo Earl and the other speedster there, but you know, when you're talking about 4 guys that can all come in and contribute, because there is a little bit of a hole there. Like, you've got John Mechie, the Canadian machine, the you know, maybe a smaller Mapletron. He's not Chase Claypool. I can't give him that. That's Mapletron, but he at least picks up the you know, football meters in bunches, if you will. But regardless, that's really the only guy that you've got, you know, that you feel good about at the wide receiver position. You do have Jalil Billingsley at tight end, who's kind of got this build that makes you think, you know, Jalil Billingsley looks like Najee Harris. Like, he looks like a massive running back at tight end, and to me, it really just doesn't make sense. I'm all here for some Jalil Billingsley. I think he's going to be a monster next year. Hopefully in the same vein as Kyle Pitts. Just take the whole entire SEC by storm. You can shake your head, Mr. Florida. That's something that is totally possible.
No one is Kyle Pitts. You realize this dude had 0 drops, right? 0, as in 0 drops.
Hey,
Kyle Pitts.
Drop that Alabama hat off your head.
Look, I'm an Alabama fan, but great recognizes great.
Oh,
and he
no
is
doubt.
Great.
And Jalil Billingsley will be too.
I think he'll be good. I don't know if he'll be on the same level as Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. Say what you will, incredible talent. You only heard about him 1 year. Say what you will. I didn't tell a lie. I didn't tell a lie right there. It kind of is what it is. But regardless, I still agree with Michael, because you got a situation. I think JoJo Earl is my favorite out of this one. The guy flips from LSU at the very last second, doesn't tell a soul except for one coach, and goes out there, puts on the Alabama hat, and he's headed here. The only problem is he's the only one that's not enrolled yet. And that's concerning, because we're going to go through another offseason that's going to be impacted by COVID. Now, look, Malachi Moore, as we've talked about already on the show, is a guy that came in despite the COVID and got himself acclimated to the defense and became a leader and an incredible playmaker. JoJo Earl could potentially do the same thing. But he's a guy that I really, really like. I think his speed, he can be a guy, not so much replace Jalen Waddle, but kind of fill that void as the gadget player that can hit those short routes do the jet passes and those sorts of things that make Bryce Young feel comfortable and get out and make some plays as well. If he can't do it, I think Christian Leary will be a solid option as well. He's got that speed all the same. Now, when it comes down to Ajayi Hall and Jacory Brooks, they're bigger wide receivers. They're still lanky. But I still think either one could definitely take that outside position opposite of John Mechie. Now, we still got Xavier Williams to think about in that position too. He is definitely a guy that can play in that spot as well. I will say, though, the interesting thing will be to see who does get on the field, because as much as excited as we can be about Xavier Williams, during this stretch of Alabama having just absolutely insane wide receivers, there have not been a lot of guys that get on as freshmen and play. You can go back to when Amari Cooper first took over as the number one wide receiver. He did that as a freshman, obviously, but the way that he carried through, there wasn't always a next freshman, the next guy to think, oh, that guy is going to be the next Amari Cooper, the next real deal, the next first round pick at wide receiver, until these guys came in with Jerry Jeudy and Devontae Smith and Henry Ruggs. Now, those guys didn't play a ton of football in that 2017 year, but regardless, they still acquired a rapport with both Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, and then Jalen Waddle in the subsequent year when it was just Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and Devontae Smith. Jalen Waddle pushed Devontae Smith out of the way a little bit, pushed Henry Ruggs out of the way a little bit, and got on the field. So that's who I'm excited to see. Who can be that guy that's like Jalen Waddle, whether he plays like him or not? Because if it's Ajayi Hall or Jacory Brooks, I'm just as fine as if it were Christian Leary or JoJo Earl. But that's the guy that you've got to be, excited about, is whoever is the guy that comes out, whether it's on A-Day or week one against Miami. That's the guy to be excited about. Right here on Off the Edge, we are going to dive into the offensive line class of the 2021 Alabama Crimson Tide. Boy, we got some hog mollies. Woo! Woo! Tell them, Rick. J.C. Latham, James and Tommy Brockmeyer, T.J. Ferguson. Let me tell you guys something. I don't know if these guys are ever going to be, like the offensive line. Like, these four guys will make up the core offensive line within like 2-3 years time. It's just too difficult to say, when you got other guys like Darian Dalcourt and Evan Neal, no telling how long he stays, that sort of thing. Like, it's understandable, right? There's guys like Tony Brown. Like, there's some good there's some great offensive linemen already on the Alabama Crimson Tide, headed up by Evan Neal, who's just a monster. If he plays past this season with the Alabama Crimson Tide, I'd be shocked, because I think he's a top 10 pick in the 2022 NFL draft already. He hasn't even played it. He hasn't played a snap at left tackle, a meaningful snap at left tackle yet. And I'm telling you right now, he's top 10 pick at left tackle in the NFL draft a season from now. But when it comes down to it, man, that right tackle position is open because Evan Neal is going to left tackle. The center position, there's a battle to be had. Now, Chris Owens is the presumptive starter, kind of has earned that right as being the senior guy that has the experience, and everybody respects him. He's a leader on the team. That's great. Justin Boygby will be the right guard. You're also going to have a situation at the left guard. You're going to have to figure out who that is. So the two guys that I am the most excited for are not the Brockmeyer twins, who I'm excited to see in year two. It is J.C. Latham at right tackle and T.J. Ferguson at left guard. And the reason comes down to it, these are old school Alabama Crimson Tide offensive linemen that still fit the new era of football. T.J. Ferguson is a nasty, nasty guy at that left guard position. I think, this is a guy that we're going to enjoy watching, similar to the vein of Chance Warmack and Deontay Brown, but while holding on to the athleticism required to perform at a high level in the NFL as well. Now, of course, that's a strong projection. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. I'm not saying he's an NFL guy right now. I'm saying what he has right now, because he played left tackle at the college level, but he comes in at 6'4", 300. But he is just a nasty, nasty dude. He is violent at the point of attack. And as I talked about with Will Anderson, I am a fan of violent football. I respect the targeting rules and the protection rules. I respect all of that greatly. I will immediately say, yes, that was targeting. No, it was not. yes, that was uncalled for. No, it was not, yada, yada, yada. But if you can be violent within the frame of the rules of today's football, you are a dude. You can play this sport for a very long time because that is the mark of a great player. And I think that's what TJ Ferguson does. At the left guard position, he is going to open holes for these running backs, and he's going to protect Bryce Young or Paul Tyson, if that's your thing. But I think that guy is just a monster. Now, as for JC Latham, you don't become the number one player in the country for nothing. Now, yeah, some people have Tui Maloa ahead of him. That's fine. That's great. Okay. But JC Latham he's the right tackle until Evan Neal leaves or until Tommy Brockermeyer proves otherwise that he can be the left tackle. But I think J.C. Latham is another monster. I see a lot of Cam Robinson in this guy where he's, again, a nasty guy that can get it done in both frames. The thing, unlike Cam, I think, is he's a better pass blocker, and that's going to go a long way as well. Regardless of what this offense looks like next year, to have two guys that can bookend as pass blockers in this offense is going to be critical. I'm still very much on the skeptical side of what the 2021 Alabama Crimson Tide offense will look like. I feel the same way about Bill O'Brien now as I did about Sarkisian when he first got back with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I don't know. I have no take because I don't know what Bill O'Brien is going to do. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how successful of a recruit he can be, how personal he can be with these players. I understand he's a super nice guy off the gridiron. But I also know that on the gridiron, he's a hard ass, and that can be difficult. How many hard asses can you deal with? Just Nick Saban? Can you deal with Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien? Like, can you do that? Can you handle that as a player? Should you have to be mentally tough and be able to do that? Yes, absolutely. But it still comes down to being able to form the players around you and be able to develop them and resonate with them as human beings. Because even as hard as Nick Saban is, his players love him. And we have seen that in a more open way over the past few years, whether it's guys like Tua Tagovailoa or Landon Dickerson or Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, Najee. Nick Saban is starting to open up and show just how much he loves his players. So those are the two guys that I am most excited about, and I cannot wait to see. I'm hoping that they're going to be major fixtures on the Alabama Crimson Tide offense in 2021.